I'd like to welcome you this afternoon to another episode of Web3 Masterminds hosted by Cryptopolitan and Forward Protocol. And today we are joined by the team from Tokens, Georgi and Ron. Please say hello, guys, and introduce yourselves.
Hey there, Mitch. Great to be here. I'm Georgi Pepelyankov. I'm the CEO of Tokens, and I'm looking forward to our conversation today.
Hey, Mitch.
Yeah,
I'm
thanks.
Ronak, co-founder and CTO at Tokens. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, really nice to meet you guys. I must say I'm really looking forward to chatting to you and learning a bit about Tokens and your project. And maybe you could start by giving us a bit of background, how you guys, linked up, how you got together, where the idea came from, and what Tokens is all about.
Absolutely. Well, first, basically, I'm going to say a few words about who we are, the co-founders of the team. We are three people are the co-founder team. It's myself, Georgi. We have Ron, who is our CTO, and we have the third person, Emil, who is not with us today. He's our chief of operations. Originally, me and Emil, we started having some conversations around the possibilities with NFTs, especially within the gaming and esports area, because the entire team is basically made up of gamers. So we're very passionate about gaming, and we also follow a few esports personalities and teams. Emil himself, he was working for one of the biggest European esports organizations at the time. And when we got to talking about it, that was basically the first months of 2021. We realized that there is a great opportunity to bring something that was already missing at this point within the esports industry, and that was collectibles. We have seen that collectibles have been tried in esports with physical items, but that really didn't make any sense because we're talking about digital native customers consuming a digital product in a digital environment. So trying to push a physical product didn't really, land well. With the NFT technology being advanced enough to start providing really accessible solutions at that point, we thought that it's a great time to start thinking in that direction. And this is how Tokens was born. Nowadays, we call Tokens the Esports Hall of Fame. It's the one place where gaming and esports fans can own, they can collect, and they can trade moments from their favorite players, teams, events, and creators. And ultimately, our purpose is to enable every gaming and esports fan to become a digital collector.
That sounds amazing. That sounds amazing. So, Georgi, when you started out, where did you see the utility? I mean, how do you provide value to people that are actually playing games, and how do they onboard and get involved in the project?
I think in the beginning, the first things that we kind of thought, and those things were coming from experience working with esports organizations and knowing where they struggle the most. We thought that the most important part was to engage with the community and with the end user, because esports teams, they are these content creation machines. They participate in events, they do all kinds of streams, they do all kinds of things that ultimately end up in content on various social media channels. So we thought about what else do actually the people consuming those content would like to have. And the esports followers, they are fans like most fans in any other, angle and any other area and, fact of life. So with them, it's about interactions, it's about personalization, it's about being closer to who you actually, enjoy watching and reading and listening to. So originally, we started thinking, how can we create some kind of interactivity between the end user and the creator through NFTs? One of the first things that we came up with is one of the kind of core utilities of NFTs that we have seen, providing access to exclusive content, to exclusive areas where actually the creator and the fan can hang out together. And this is where things started to evolve from there. We started thinking, okay, how would these spaces look like? Is this just like a chat on Discord, which is like the very basic low level? Or is this something where it's more interactive? Like, for example, a call like we are having right now, where we can actually look at each other and have a proper human conversation. And then it can actually evolve into something even deeper than that, like a 3D environment, similar to a metaverse project, where we would both hang out with our avatar representations of ourselves. We can consume together another piece of content. We can maybe watch a stream or watch a movie or just, have a friendly chat. And things kind of snowballed from there. We started figuring more and more ways to add utility to the NFTs. And luckily, NFT technology is really suitable for those kind of use cases.
That sounds amazing. And tell me, from a technical standpoint, what sort of technical ability does a user need to have to interact with tokens and to utilize the functionality of it?
I think, Ron, sorry for jumping ahead of you here, just to answer, and maybe then you can add to that. One
Sure.
of our early ambitions was that we wanted to create a product which is going to allow an everyday person to use it without having any previous background in blockchain technology, NFTs, cryptocurrency, any of that. So we started from scratch. We started designing user journeys where the user would just consume the same way that they consume content on YouTube and on Twitch, and they would pay the same way that they pay on Amazon and on eBay. So they would be able to use their credit card, they would be able to pay with fiat currency, not necessarily having to understand, okay, so this is US dollar, now I need to do Ethereum, whatever. And this is something that we saw as friction. Ultimately, we found out that there are users who enjoy that. So there are, different paths that users can take. But our starting vision was to create an experience which would be very frictionless, very easy to understand by the everyday user who doesn't necessarily have background with blockchain.
Yeah, I think that's the important thing. I know when Key and I were developing the basis and the idea for Ford Protocol, it was based on very similar ideals. There's so many, in fact, the majority, the biggest part of the whole value chain sits outside of crypto. And inside, we have all the complexity and technicalities, like setting up wallets and converting fiat to crypto and buying, and all the different elements that you need to become useful and to do things inside the crypto space, which is a huge friction point for most people. And that's why we also on our side, went for that no-code environment where, Ford is like the WordPress for Web3, where you've got a template-driven no-code environment to help people that want to come into the space, but that can't. It sounds very similar to what you're doing, which I think is the only way that we're going to encourage adoption and really get a lot of users into the space. And I imagine when you look at it, the gaming industry is absolutely enormous. Esports is incredibly huge. And to bring those people into a blockchain crypto environment, you need to make it as frictionless as possible. Otherwise, you're going to get a lot of pushback. Ron, maybe you could just take us through a user journey and tell us as a user how they would interact with tokens and what that user journey would look like.
Sure, exactly. And on your previous point, I completely agree that for adoption, we need to make it as less friction as possible. So how we have done it on tokens is like we are not requiring users to have any prior knowledge on the blockchain. They don't need to know anything about blockchain, or they don't need to come with an existing wallet on the blockchain. So we have completely taken that part on our platform side. Users just have to come on the platform and join the platform as a normal any other websites, just like using email, password, and basically that. And we create wallets on behalf of users, just like custodial wallet solution. We make the transactions and yeah, users won't have to initiate any blockchain transactions at all. All they need to do is come on the platform. They can see the packs. They can directly purchase the packs, and the NFTs, they can trade with each other and making the payments directly through their credit card, debit card, any fiat mechanisms. And yeah, that's it. Users won't have to continue the flow with the blockchain. Then the platform will handle all the blockchain logics. So this with this we have reduced the friction for the users to very negligible. They just have to select what pack, what NFTs they want to trade or buy, and then that's it. I mean, with some clicks of the button, they will be able to get.
Okay, so basically tokens handles all of the blockchain in the back end. Exactly. And as a user, I'd just be interacting with the front end that would look very similar to what I use now in a Web2 environment when I play esports, and I can go in and interact behind the scenes. You take care of all the technicalities and complexities, and exactly. I'll be able to buy NFTs, use them in the games, etc. Does that sort of sum it up?
Yes, exactly. And not only that, we don't restrict the users with this custodial wallet solution. If they are technical, or if they want to export their NFT, eject their NFT from our platform and use it somewhere else, like OpenSea, if they want to sell there, or for example, if they want to use it in some metaverse project. So we, as tokens core functionality, we are building it multi-chain, so they would be able to get their NFT out of the platform and into their favorite blockchain like Polygon, and then they would be able to use it from MetaMask.
Okay, so it's almost like a basic and an advanced function, where if I'm an advanced user, I can interact with MetaMask, take my NFT, go cross-chain, and take it to OpenSea or something like that, and utilize it in a different blockchain.
Exactly.
Okay, that creates amazing functionality. And tell me a little bit about your tokens and the way as a user I would interact. Is the token listed? Tell me a little bit about that. How does it work? And how would a user interact and get access to it?
Yeah, so tokens, sorry. Yeah. So tokens, we are currently minting our tokens on Polygon blockchain. We are going to have sale rounds for the tokens where user will be able to purchase it and use it as several utilities mechanisms, like using it as a currency on the platform or enabling certain abilities on the platform. I mean, it will also be open on the DEX where users can trade the token with each other. Then there are certainly more benefits of the token where we can utilize it to enable sponsorship events, or even, for example, allowing them to use those tokens in any in-game collectibles, or growing the tokens ecosystem. So there will be a lot more benefits coming along. And as you know, tokens is building on multi-chain. So there will be several projects where people will be able to use the tokens across.
Okay, that makes sense. Georgi, could I ask you, maybe you could just tell us a little bit more about esports and how tokens fits in, and what categories or what sectors I could utilize the functionality of your system in?
That's a very, very good question, Mitch. And tokens, when we started initially, we started from the position of how can we actually serve the esport industry? What are kind of the pain points that we'll be addressing? What are the solutions to which problems that we are providing, a technical solution? And this is also why we see NFTs and blockchain as technology, not necessarily as the end product. The end product is an experience which the esports fans consume. We address several different categories of revenues for esports organizations. Usually the esports organizations, they receive their revenues either from donations, which happen on platforms like Twitch, YouTube, or outside of those platforms like Patreon, for example. With our case, donations are formulated in the form of the revenue share that we work with esports organizations, so they get a significant portion of the earnings. One other very big category for them are merchandise sales. So for them, considering that we are ultimately creating digital collectibles and memorabilia items, those are just another form of digital merchandise. So we are addressing that angle as well. Additionally, they also receive a significant portion of the revenues from events and participating and hosting events. This is where our platform and our NFTs can serve quite a big portion of the entire life cycle of an event, because the user can actually purchase the ticket for the event as an NFT. This NFT is going to grant them access to a certain area and environment where they can consume the event. And also they can do this with other people that have the similar level of access as they have, so they can hang out in a joint space. And finally, after the event has ended, they can have like early access or even some complimentary content coming from the event as bonus assets to that specific NFT. So the NFT kind of covers the entire life cycle of whatever event they have going on. Beyond that, we also realized something, that these esports organizations, they sit on huge content archives. Those archives just sit there and collect dust, because once they have done the round on their social media channels, beyond those initial engagement moments, they become just archive and nothing more than that. But the data shows that parts of them are very much engaging, and we realize that through upcycling them as NFT collectibles, we can provide a bit of an engaging material for the creator and the user, again, to connect through. And we know that these are the kind of things that actually the end user loves the creator for. These are the original reasons why they became fans. So we built the memorabilia items based on those pieces of content, and then we just surround them with additional utility so that we can make them useful for a longer time, and they can provide additional benefits to their owners.
Yeah, that makes sense. And Georgi, are you a B2B and a B2C project?
Yes, I think when people ask us, are you B2B or B2C, we usually answer that we are B2B2C, because we are ultimately an NFT marketplace. And as a two-sided marketplace, we serve both businesses and consumers. The businesses are the esports organizations and creators, who are all professionals in the gaming and esports industry. And then on the other side, we have end users who are usually gaming and esports fans. In some cases, those would be NFT enthusiasts who are just fans of the idea of collecting cool items.
Okay, and so we've chatted about the user experience from a user. Could you just run through it from a business perspective? If I was an esports platform, or I was a celebrity and I wanted to engage with tokens, how would I do that?
Absolutely. We actually recently signed a few more partners, so soon we're going to have announcements on them, but I can tell you what the process was like in those meetings with them. Usually we would find some kind of a connection, and we will start talking about the business problems that they're facing, what they actually do at the moment with their fans, how are they engaging with them, do they have a specific channel, do they have specific events, how are they monetizing on their content, how are they actually making money, what are their revenue streams. Based on those conversations, we start outlining what potentially would the tokens collectibles look like for them. We start thinking, okay, if we decide to do something with your content to upcycle it, or maybe something with upcoming content that has not yet been created, we start planning around that. And then we start asking the question, but what is the utility for the user? And exploring what current journeys the users have with them gives us a good idea of how we can enrich that. Sometimes it's about creating exclusive areas and exclusive content for them, which is basically guarded with NFT access. Sometimes it's using NFTs as a personal connection with the end user. So for example, the holder of one of the more rare NFTs would have the ability to play a game with their favorite player. It's a one-time type of perk, one-time utility, but it's something that we think is going to be a lasting experience for the user. So this is ultimately, it's a series of conversations. First, we start about the business problems, then we start outlining what a potential collection would look like, and then we start outlining what is the actual utility around it, and then ultimately, there is a conversation about the commercial aspect of it.
Okay, so you provide a full service utility for a business that wanted to come in and use your platform.
Absolutely. The way that we position ourselves in front of partners is we are their guide into Web3, into the world of NFTs and metaverse, and we try to help them create on-brand engaging experiences using NFT technology. Because we try to tell them that NFT right now is creating a lot of hype, but NFT is just technology. You need to understand how to apply this technology in a meaningful way so that your community appreciates it. There is no pushback. There is no negative, created negative energy, negative kind of experiences by the users. They don't feel that they have just been, sold something, but they actually find this product something that they would like to use themselves.
Yeah, I think that's so necessary. I think a lot of companies sit on the fence and they get confused with what's happening in the space and what the potential is, because they don't know how to take the first step. And it's always seen as a big barrier to entry. They just don't understand how to take it. So if you can take them and handhold them and guide them through the process and show them how to solve inherent problems with solutions, I think it's a fantastic way of actually leading them in and developing the space. So well done to you guys. That's great. Maybe I could switch a little bit, and Ron, you could open with an answer here. There are so many bottlenecks and challenges in the space at the moment, with companies looking and inquiring about the metaverse and how they use NFTs, etc. What do you think the major bottlenecks are, and how could we get rid of those to actually create adoption and allow a lot more companies and users to enter the space very easily and seamlessly?
Sure. So one primary challenge that is the blockchain community is facing is the interoperability between the blockchains. So metaverse projects created within in a one blockchain may not be able to interact with another metaverse project in another blockchain. So it is very important for an NFT to be multi-chain or be able to work with multiple metaverse across different blockchains. So that is one challenge. Another challenge is user experience. When we say an NFT minted on one blockchain, so how user will be able to take it to another blockchain or a different project is something that needs to be focused on and made very user friendly. So basically reducing their friction. And this way, as time passes by, Web3 community, the developers are working very hard to solve these challenges so far. And there are several other factors as well. So it all depends. For example, if a metaverse project decides that they are, if they're not open to other chains or integrations, if their solution is not more developer friendly, or there is no way to integrate with their solution, then it creates a friction for other projects as well. So for metaverse projects, it is more important to be open for the developers and to be open to the blockchains, creating endpoints, APIs, and other ways to connect with it. And then users will be able to connect as well. And also the developers will need to understand the user experience as well while users are switching between different projects and NFTs.
I think.
Yeah, carry on, Georgi.
Sorry, I just wanted to add something to that, because
yeah, sure.
I think there is one situation that is kind of developing with the metaverse projects right now. It's a bit of a catch-22 situation, because metaverse projects seem very cool, and I think for most people they're very enjoyable, very exciting to spend time there for limited, for let's say few hours, few days, few weeks even. Ultimately, you run out of things to do, and you realize that actually there is not a real problem that is being solved in a meaningful way in a metaverse environment compared to other environments like standard Web 2 or else. And I think what Ron said is basically the solution there. If those projects are very developer friendly, then developers are going to start creating new experiences, new solutions to other problems, which ultimately are going to add to what is already existing, creating an environment that is worth spending time. It reminds me a lot of, I'm not sure if you remember when Windows Phone was still very much a thing. And I remember that at that time, iPhones were still not the prevalent, smartphone out there. But Windows Phone was not developer friendly, and ultimately they couldn't acquire developers to create apps. Users want apps, and then on the other hand, developers were saying, I'm not going to develop apps for an environment that doesn't have users. So it becomes a bit of a vicious circle that ultimately led to the death of Windows Phone. And I think that's why with metaverse projects, it's very important for them to remain open and not to be walled environments. I really fear what is going to happen if they decided that we work with Polygon, we work with our existing approved developers, and that's it. I think those projects would slowly realize that they don't have enough new kind of waves of content and experiences to keep the users entertained.
And I think you're right. And we both agree on that we need interoperable blockchains and connectivity, etc. How long do you think it's going to take until there's actually a functional system that's developer friendly, open source, that actually has enough incentive? Because we obviously have an incentive because we have a vision and things that we want to do with our projects, but you need to create the incentive for developers to come in so that they find purpose and meaning and make money out of it. Otherwise, they won't stick around. They'll jump to something else that has more meaning. So how long do you think it's going to be until there's enough functionality for them to be able to do that?
I will let Ron to answer from a technical perspective. I just want to say that from a consumer perspective, I think this is something that at the moment is more in the novelty area. And until it reaches more mainstream area of consumption, the older projects are kind of very protective and defensive. They're trying to shield themselves and not to open up too much because they realize that in those cases, users are just going to take something from me and run somewhere else. And I get that. I get that this is a concern, but ultimately, if you have value, they will come back. Otherwise, from a technical perspective, what's required for that to happen, I would let Ron give us an insight.
Can I just run before you start? I just want to ask Georgi something else, but then we're always going back to centralization again, where the idea of decentralization, we lose that because now all of a sudden, even though it's a decentralized project, they protective and they close their ranks and they don't allow anything because they're trying to grab as much market share as possible. Isn't that true?
It's absolutely true, Mitch. And I think with the biggest players right now in the space, and we see obviously Facebook, they rebranded to Meta and they have announced their entire ambition in this space. I think Meta is a perfect example of the Web3 idea in a very centralized manner. So I wouldn't call it necessarily Web3 because I think Web3 in its core is decentralized. But then there are the biggest players who, because of commercial reasons and rationale, they are centralizing everything. They're walling it and they're trying to to protect it from outsiders, not to chip in, which depending on the business model could be a working or a doomed strategy.
Absolutely. Sorry, Ron, didn't want to cut you off. Please go ahead.
Yeah. So in terms of technical aspects, I think there are several factors, especially when different blockchains are working on different protocols. So without any connections or any way to integrate both with each other, there are challenges there. But I also know that there are many projects working on solving this interoperability. For example, the Interoperability Ledger Protocol, ILP. And there are more to connect EVM chains. But what about non-EVM chains and EVM chains? How to connect that? So the bridges are required to build those for now until a solid functionality or something is built on top of it. So I see it would take time for now. There are some bridges that are developed to interact between different EVM chains. But so far, there is no successful mechanism to connect a non-EVM and an EVM chain. So I mean, there could be custom processes built to detect and trigger and detect events between two blockchains. But other than that, I mean, it would take time to actually when we see the actual interoperability between different blockchains in the Web3 space.
And I think, Mitch, also looking at what Forward Protocol is doing, I mean, obviously you are creating a solution where you are bridging also the EVM compatible blockchains, which is a huge step forward. And I think this is currently where we're at the forefront of technology when it comes to blockchain. I think if you're able to cover at least the EVM side of things, you're basically reaching the top. And what Ron said is probably this next horizon where we need to reach, where we actually able to link also with the others. I see that from the many cool projects that are coming up in the last 6 to 9 months. the ones that are multi-chain and that are providing this bridge functionality are, for me at least, the most exciting ones, because I see that they're looking beyond the quick hype that is now surrounding DeFi or play to earn or NFTs.
Yeah, it's so true that Georgi, you know, we at Forward we really think about the tools that we can create that'll help developers to come in with attached revenue models, etc. Because I mean, Ron, like you were saying, now it's, yeah, we can open it up and bring developers in, but how do you encourage people to come in and to really put their creativity and their time into a project that you know, needs time to develop, into a sector that's still developing? And I think when we get that right, and we can actually draw more and more brain power into the sector, so you have multiple people coming in and contributing, as you were saying, Georgie, to create more engaging content, because people do run out of ideas and they do get bored and they do want to get entertained ultimately, especially in your environment. And so, Ron, I mean, what are the things that need to come into the space that would really encourage developers, like really smart guys, to switch and come in and put their effort in and help develop the space?
Sure. First thing, the project needs to be open source so that developer can see what the existing technology being used and how it is implemented, and they can learn from it. Second, the resources. So the developers who have already built the project, they could provide resources about how their project is built, how to play around with it, and how to tweak it. For example, API documentations or documentation with regards to specific functionalities that can be played or tweaked around. And the third point will be some incentivization. So some Web3 projects are getting a lot of funding. So I also see a lot of projects open on Gitcoin and several other platforms where they are incentivizing the users, even through hackathons. And the developers are joining the projects and trying to build cool stuff on top of it. These are some mechanisms that are currently being used. Other than that, the projects themselves, they have tokens that they can use to incentivize the developers, and some feedback as well. So when the developers are working on the projects, they can get the feedback to move in the right direction from the existing developers, and also some collaboration on that side. So these things will help. Yeah,
carry on, Ron.
This thing will help the developers to work on top of the existing project and build more cool features on top of it.
Yeah, thanks for that. And tell me, what about legislation? Do you see any legislation bottlenecks that are prohibiting, you know, people coming into the space?
Do you want to take this one, Ron, or should I?
Yeah, sure. For the developers, I don't see any legislation restrictions so far. I mean, anyone who is building on Web3, they are able to do it without any concerns in terms of legislative laws or anything.
I think from the business side, there is a bit of a concern, which we are currently experiencing. For example, we are seeing that a lot of governments and a lot of agencies and institutions are just cramming everything that is blockchain into the same, denominator. And this is kind of unfair, because while cryptocurrencies are blockchain technology, NFTs are blockchain technology, they are completely different in their in their cores, and putting regulation that covers both in the same way is sometimes risky, because this means that you're either keeping things very unregulated, yet if it's very liberal, or on the other hand, if it's more conservative, more controlling, that means that you're stifling innovation. Because right now we see, for example, that in the UK, crypto is still not fully regulated. Now there is a lot of talk about regulating crypto like other financial instruments, and they are also planning to maybe tag along NFTs with them, which means that if NFTs are being regulated and taxed the same way that cryptocurrencies would be, it's going to stifle all the projects that are going into this space, because ultimately it's going to destroy their business models. And while we're all doing it with grander ideas of decentralization, these startups, they need a way to survive. And if the business models don't work, ultimately people are going to focus on something else. As Ron said, we need incentivization. If there is no incentive to work in this space, then people will find something else. There are other exciting technologies like AI, machine learning. There are a lot of cool things some bright young developer could decide to specialize in.
Yeah, it really is a two-edged sword, isn't it? I mean, I remember back in 2017, 2018, etc. The idea of completely decentralized was very prevalent, and a lot of money in DeFi sat outside. Even now in DeFi, as big as it is and as fast growing as it is, the most money still sits outside in the traditional financial system. And now as legislation sort of comes into play and it unlocks that corporate governance and allows companies to come in and to really interact and to put money into the DeFi space, we see a lot more money flowing in. And I think as that opens up, we'll see more and more and more. So it's a fine balance, you're right, because without incentivization for the corporates and the institutions bringing the finances in, the whole cap of the industry is stifled. And without the incentivization for developers, you don't get the creativity to come and actually build it. So there has to be a middle ground there somewhere. And I think over the next year, 2 years, 3 years, hopefully we're actually going to find that middle ground, and it'll work, because it'll certainly go a long way to encouraging the space and to encouraging the growth.
I do hope so. And I feel that the regulators, first, it's an educational thing. They need to understand the technology before they apply any legislature, because otherwise they are basically putting laws on something that they don't understand what the impact is going to be and what are the consequences of those decisions. And we've seen this happen in many cases, especially in the financial sector. They are kind of reactive regulation, reactive legislation, which doesn't necessarily solve the problem. It more, kind of blocks it, creates two other problems, which I feel in the blockchain space is a very, very big concern.
Yeah, one more thing to add to that is unclear laws in different countries. That's why a lot of VCs are, not finding it comfortable to invest in Web3 startups due to unclear laws.
Yeah, Ron, it's 100% right. There really is a knee-jerk reaction. I think the first thing was, if you look back, it was like Bitcoin is for drugs and illegal deeds and all the bad things on the dark web. And, you tend to tar everybody with the same brush. And yet when you look at where, most of the laundering happens is not in crypto, it's outside in fiat, because that's just the biggest part of the money. But I think, the governments, etc., they play to their own fiddle. They've got their own ideas, their own agendas, which they push. And it's going to take time to get that. But it's been very encouraging for me to see how, especially in the last year, and I think in this year, we're going to see more and more institutions coming in and, putting Bitcoin in their balance sheet. And that goes a long way to actually helping the space and helping it grow, etc. And when you get big companies like Tesla, etc., putting it on indirectly, if you hold Tesla shares, you are holding some Bitcoin or whatever it is. So it is, as you guys have rightly said, it's about education. If we can educate people and we can educate governments and institutions, then we're going to have a great chance of really scaling in the short term. Otherwise, it might take a little bit longer.
I completely agree. And I think there is one, sorry, Mitch, to cut you off there. I think there is one risk, especially with, crypto becoming more and more popular as an asset choice for corporations. I think those corporations obviously would feel a lot safer, as well as the institutional investors. They would feel a lot safer if there is more regulation and also more centralization. So it's a trade-off to a certain extent. We get more money from traditional finance into blockchain projects, into cryptocurrencies, into other aspects of blockchain. But with that comes also the appetite to control, and the appetite to control ultimately leads to centralization. So people need to be a bit aware of what exactly are we, giving away when we're accepting the newcomers with the, with the big wallets.
Yeah, that's right. And I think also on the end user side, sometimes there's an apathy to learn new things. And so you very happily do the things that are easy for you. And you understand bank accounts, etc. You don't understand wallets. You've got to learn. It's hard. There's a lot of friction. So you just tend to go along with the norm. But it's been really, really interesting chatting to you guys. You got some great ideas. I love your project. Maybe you could just wrap up with some final thoughts of where you see it going, what the year looks like, and your hopes for the future.
Sure. Ron, I'll start first from the business side. You can wrap up with the technical side if you agree.
Sure.
We are currently, while we are developing on our roadmap, which Ron can say a few things about, we're also signing new partners, and we want to kind of create the foundations and an infrastructure on this blockchain technology where we can really start building cool things and cool experiences, not only with NFTs, but also collaborating with other projects. Like, for example, we are already in discussions with a really cool project in 3D environment space to create a metaverse experience. And we want to make this very interoperable so that people can take things from it into other spaces. Also, they can import things from other projects. Ultimately, I think for us, it's about creating those partnerships that would really allow us to grow going forward. This is where the year is going. And before I pass to Ron, I just want to say something more on the personal side. I want to thank you, first of all, for having us, but also secondary, I think this format is really important because you are educating people, and I'm not sure how many people we are going to reach with our messages, but ultimately you keep going at it. And I think you're expanding the community knowledge of this space. And I think with blockchain, the biggest thing right now is knowledge. If people understand it, they will inevitably learn to love it because it allows for so much. It allows for so many new cool things to happen. So thank you very much for doing that. And with that,
yeah,
Ron.
Thanks, Georgie.
Yeah. And in terms of technical side, I mean, Web3 is a very open space. So on our roadmap, we are focusing more on the making the platform multi-chain. So it's not focused on only one blockchain. User can choose which blockchain they want their NFT on. This is one of the core functionality we are working on. Other functionalities in the roadmap include utilities for our token, utilities for the NFTs to be part of different use cases. For example, as I mentioned earlier, like sponsorship events or in-game collectibles and several other mechanisms to, and also for the tokens to be used as platform currency. So yeah, and apart from this, we also would be encouraging other projects to be integrating with us, and also we'll be integrating with several metaverse projects as well. So things are looking a lot exciting ahead.
Yeah, it is really exciting. I agree with you, Ron. A great future to look to. And Georgie, as you said, all about education. If we can just keep educating the community and help people understand how they can be safe and they can learn and they really can get some benefit from everything that we see in the space, then we're doing our job and we're making our part in this contribution to the ecosystem that's growing. So Georgie, Ron, thanks again so much. And thanks to Tokens. We really appreciate you guys being here and wish you all the best with all your plans for this year and into the future. Thanks again.
Likewise, Mitch. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye.